And then I want to give the floor to Jens for the last, 5-10 minutes. He will ask you, he will explain you the voting of this afternoon.
Yes. Thank you, and thank you especially to Koen Rademakers for leading this very long session, and you have been on the spot for a long time. Should we give him a hand? So now we heard the opinion of all these experts, and we're all experts in some way. And we have saved some of the best to the last, that is to hear your opinion on what we heard about today. I should find out to switch on this one. I think that's it. You have hopefully all got a voting device, which is looking like this, and you find it out now. The first time you push on it, I think it comes alive, and it gives a little green light for you, so you can see you are now in the voting panel. When we do this voting, the interesting thing is that we will get an immediately feedback from what you meant about it. First, the right way to hold this one is that you point at me. It's not a laser, so I'm not afraid of that. And you push in the air. Don't put down on the floor, because then you wouldn't be discounted in the voting. It's registering here by the computer, so this is the right direction. You push and you get the green light, and green light says okay. If you get a red light, something is wrong, and you're probably not counted in the vote. You can only vote once, so don't sit and push 20 times, because you want to boost it up in your direction. Let's take the first question. It is to test your knowledge about Romania, and it's also to see if the system is working. So is Bucharest, if you rank it in the European cities, is it number 3 most populated in Europe? Is it number 6? Then you press 2 of the most populated. Is it the 30th most populated? You push 3. Is it the 36th most populated? Then you push 4. Is it the 66th most populated? Then you push number 5. I think when I push this one, the voting is open, and you can now cast your votes. I would try to vote too. And we count. The system is counting. I think 38. We're probably in for the vote. Let's see what you voted. This showed it's the 13th most populated, but actually I think the right question is the 6th most populated. So we are really in one of the big cities in Europe. You didn't pass the first test, but I hope you pass the next ones. So now we go to the things which is in the topic we have been discussing today. Let's say what barriers should the construction sector overcome for energy efficiency training? 1, the cost of training. 2, the worker motivation. 3, the low demand for skilled workers. 4, the lack of trained trainers. We heard a lot about training the trainers. 5, none of those above. This time there's maybe not a right question, but let's see what you vote to this one. The voting is open. We are getting close to the same number again, so I think all of you have been voting. Let's see what was the favorite option. Okay, it's the low demand for skilled workers. So that tells us something. We must go back to set in force the requirements for this. The other follows with nearly the same share, just having the worker motivation a little higher and also the lack of trained trainers. So we missed the trainers and we missed the motivation, but especially we missed the demands. That's what you say. Let's take one more. We say, how can European countries stimulate the uptake of training for high energy efficient energy performance buildings? Sorry. Number one, the professional skills cards and registers. Number two, subsidized courses. Number three, post-construction testing. So, number four, regulation or legislation. Number five, none of the above. So I will open for voting. Now it's open. So let's say this was voting for this time. I close. And people are calling for regulation. That's the more than a third say, come on with some rules. They could come from the Commission and the ASME and all these people in Brussels. Then we don't have to blame the politicians. Others are similar. They want post-construction testing, so they want to it's more the splash and the stick here than it's the carrots. We could have professional skill cards so that you could see who are good and who are not so bad. That's and then subsidized courses. All of us nearly agreed that some of this would work in some way. So only a few, or maybe one, have said none of these. Probably because you preferred another option. Which trades and professions need the most training for energy efficiency in buildings? Where is the biggest problem? I think this is the question. It's the one, insulation installers, two, the architects, three, the engineers, four, the plumbing and HVAC craftsmen, five, the building managers, six, the electricians, and seven, none of those above. Somewhere else, somebody else must be the answer. So now you have to choose one of these, and I open for voting. Now we can see how many engineers are in the room. So I stop the voting now. So, oops, didn't that go the wrong way? This is back. So there was not so many architects in the room. So 30% said that the biggest problem in this sector is actually the architects. After these, with nearly a quarter, was followed by the people doing the piping and the missing insulation of the piping and the HVAC systems. Then you had engineers and insulation installers at the same score, and nobody felt so much need for training for building managers or electricians. And again, there was one who wanted to vote on somebody else. So I think, continuing, of which trades or professions have the most influence on buildings' energy performance? So which are the most important in deciding the energy performance? It's one, the insulation installers. Number two, the architects. Number three, the engineers. Number four, the plumbing or HVAC craftsmen. Number five, the building managers. Number six, the electricians. Or number six, none of the above, somebody else. I open for voting. I think we are up on the same vote, so I stop. And they actually felt that the architects have a lot to say in this one. More than 50% of the impact on a building is actually coming from the architect. And that tells us why you wanted these to be trained more than anybody else. Engineers only have 30%, and then the people doing the work in the blue, they were actually the least important in this kind of decisions. And nobody felt the building managers could do the most, or nobody found the electricians to be the most important and critical in this issue. Okay, we can see you need to do more training of architects here. That's clear. I think we have at least one more question. What is then the most efficient training method for the construction workers? That was the people we gave the least importance in deciding, but what is the most important for them? It is 1, seminars and lectures, 2, online courses, 3, on-site mentoring, 4, mobile apps, so would they use the cell phone for this, or 5, none of the above. I open for voting. Now you can vote. Okay, we reached 100% this time, so let's see what you said. It's the on-site mentoring. So we all think the best way to address these people is when they are working, and we tell them how to do it right and not to do it wrong. And that was 85%, so this is really a strong majority. Only 12% believed in seminars and lectures, and 2%, one person, in that you could actually reach these people over your cell phone or their cell phone. The other ones got no votes in this one. That was it. And please don't take this with you home. It's not a souvenir from this session. We will need it again for other votes. I think thank you for this contribution, which is nice as feedback. We have organized also that those people who saw this on distance, they could do this by Twitter, I think it was. And they had more freedom. They didn't have to vote at the same time. I think they could follow the votes, and I think they can still even do it. And this way we can later collect how the people not in this room, if they were different from those of you sitting here, where we could watch what you were doing and saying. I think the only thing which is left is a few concluding remarks. And I think it has been a very interesting day and or afternoon. And I think it's stressed again that this is a very big task where we talk about the figure of 3 million people European-wide. It's not something we can do just overnight or a little time. This is a quite big task, and it's something where you need active governments, you need active indication, you need active organization, you need the stakeholders to come in this. It's also maybe not a one-time go that we need to train. We could hear that some of these discussions had maybe been going on 20 years ago, and nearly with some of the same figures. There are new people coming in, there are new discussions, things become more complex. But I think what I heard as a common understanding is that this is a very important issue. If we don't get this part right, we will continue making mistakes. We will believe that we get nearly zero energy buildings, but we don't, because people built something that could have been a nearly zero energy building, but because of the mistakes with the pipes, which look like, if you have problems with your stomach, it would be looking like that. That could kill the nearly and make it into far away from zero energy. I think this was a couple of very important issues. There were many other things, but if you start mentioning 5, 6, 10, you won't remember the ones I said, and I just want you to remember these 3. Then you are free to take with you home what we concluded today. The only thing I will ask you is go home and train somebody. So let's go from talking to doing in practice. And with this, I would actually thank you all for the participation, either here in the room or over the web. The material we made today will also be uploaded. So when you say in some while from now, what did they vote about these architects or something like that, you can go back and you can see the numbers, or you can go back and hear one of the presentations again. And it is with information, it only works when you're spreading it. If you keep it in a secret box, you don't get anywhere by the information. So with this, I will thank all of you. And those who are in the room, we can offer you a little drink for coming here. Unfortunately, I cannot do that for the people who watched over the net. You have to find your own solution. So thank you, everybody, and especially the speakers and the people who organized. Thank you.